Have you ever loved someone who seemed to disappear the moment things got real? Someone who looked at you like you meant everything, then turned cold as if you were nothing? That sudden silence, that distance, it's not always rejection. Sometimes it's the only language a wounded heart knows how to speak. You know, one of the hardest things about dealing with avoidant people is this. They rarely express themselves with words. They communicate through silence, through distance, through those long pauses that make you wonder if they've forgotten about you. But here's what most people don't see. That silence isn't always rejection. Many times it's a kind of communication. It's their way of saying, I'm overwhelmed, but I still care. The avoidant mind is full of contradictions. On the surface, they want independence, freedom, and control. But deep inside, there's a very human need, the need to be seen, understood, and to feel safe with someone. The painful truth is that the thing they want most is also the thing they fear the most. Through childhood experiences or emotional wounds, they learn that closeness can bring judgment, pressure, or pain. So when intimacy feels too deep or too real, they don't pull back because they don't care. They pull back because they care too much. It's like watching someone standing at the edge of a cliff. They want to jump into love, but they don't trust the landing. So they stay there, half in and half out, hoping you'll understand their hesitation without them needing to explain. And here's something to remember. When an avoidant person withdraws, they aren't always leaving you. Sometimes that's their way of reaching out. Think about the person who disappears for a few days and then suddenly sends a message like, "Hey, this reminded me of you." Or the one who doesn't reply to your texts but still views your stories or likes your posts. Those aren't random acts. They're hidden messages. It's their quiet way of saying, I still feel connected to you. I just don't know how to handle what I feel. Most people miss this truth. Avoidants don't avoid you. They avoid the emotions that being around you brings up. Those emotions make them feel exposed, dependent, and vulnerable, and that's terrifying for them. Their nervous system connects closeness with losing control, so they pull back, not out of cruelty, but out of protection. But to someone more secure or anxious, that distance feels like rejection. It feels like being pushed away. From their point of view, though, that distance is like armor. It's what they believe keeps them safe. Now, this doesn't mean you should excuse or romanticize their silence. It means you need to see the whole picture. True emotional maturity means being able to understand behavior instead of reacting to it. When you stop and ask yourself, what might this silence really mean? You move from reacting to understanding. The signs are subtle, a shift in tone, pulling away after closeness, or sending a short, neutral message after you've gone quiet yourself. These aren't coincidences. This is how avoidants try to stay close without admitting they want to. It's a self-protective dance wrapped in survival. If you're emotionally aware, you can start to see the messages hidden in those actions. In psychology, this is linked to something called deactivating strategies. Avoidant people try to minimize their emotional needs to protect their independence. They convince themselves they don't need anyone. But deep inside, they long for exactly what they're afraid of, real connection. So when they reach out, even indirectly after pulling away, that's a breakthrough. It means that deep down, a part of them that's tired of running is finally coming forward. And how you respond in that moment matters deeply. When you respond with calmness instead of fear, you show them something powerful. You show them that closeness doesn't have to mean losing themselves, that being seen doesn't mean being controlled. You become a calm space in their emotional storm, and that calmness teaches them something their fear never could, that love can be safe. So when that silence appears again, don't rush to fill it. Don't assume it's the end. Pause. Look beneath it. Ask yourself what this distance might be trying to say. Sometimes silence isn't a goodbye. Sometimes it's an invitation to listen differently. The avoidant won't tell you they miss you, but they'll show it in small, quiet ways that don't look like missing. If you can look beyond the surface, if you can hear the message behind their quietness, you'll realize something beautiful. Avoidance isn't absence. It's a coded message from someone still learning how to stay. And when you start to truly listen to that silence, you're not just understanding them, you're also evolving yourself. You're learning to connect in a deeper way, to stay steady when emotions run high, to love with awareness instead of reaction. Because the strongest kind of connection isn't the one that demands to be noticed, it's the one that understands without noise. That's the moment you stop chasing understanding and start becoming it. One of the most confusing parts of avoidant behavior is that push and pull pattern. One moment they move closer, and the next they pull away so fast it feels like emotional whiplash. If you've ever been close to someone like this, you've felt that confusion. You sense warmth, connection, real emotion, and then suddenly it's gone. They become distant, quiet, unreachable, and you're left wondering what you did wrong. But the truth is, it's rarely about you. It's about how their nervous system reacts to closeness. Here's what's happening underneath that pattern. When an avoidant person starts to feel emotionally close, their brain interprets that closeness as danger. It's not logical, it's automatic. It comes from old emotional wiring that once kept them safe. Somewhere in their past, their mind learned, don't get too close. It's not safe. So when they start to genuinely connect, that same inner alarm goes off. It tells them they might lose their freedom, their control, or even their sense of self. And to quiet that alarm, they retreat. They don't pull back because they've stopped caring. They pull back because their system confuses intimacy with danger. That's why it feels like you can't win. When you move closer, they back away. When you give space, they come near again. It's not a game, it's survival. Psychologists call this the approach-avoidance conflict. It's the internal fight between wanting love and fearing it at the same time. They want to feel connected but also safe, and those two desires constantly clash. When an avoidant person senses that you're emotionally invested, they start to feel pressure. They think they have to perform emotionally, and that pressure triggers fear. Instead of expressing it, they disappear. They distract themselves with work, hobbies, or anything that gives them control again. And here's the irony. Once they've created that distance, once the emotional tension fades, that's when they start missing you. That's when they peek back in, because now the connection feels safe again. This push and pull cycle is exhausting for both people. But breaking it doesn't happen by chasing harder or begging for closeness. It happens through steadiness. The core wound of an avoidant is fear of being consumed, fear that closeness will erase them. So when you try too hard to pull them back or demand reassurance, you accidentally confirm their fear. You become the intensity they're running from. But when you stay calm, grounded, and patient, you send a different message. You show them that love can exist without pressure. So let's make this simple. The next time an avoidant starts to pull away, resist the panic. Don't send multiple messages asking what's wrong. Don't replay every conversation in your head. Remember, their retreat isn't rejection, it's regulation. They're not abandoning you, they're trying to calm their system. Give them the space they need without resentment. Stay open, steady, and kind. A quiet check-in like, "I'm here when you're ready," carries more power than any emotional pursuit ever could. The push-pull dynamic continues only when both people react from fear. The avoidant fears closeness, and the anxious fears abandonment. The way out is through self-awareness. You can't control their reactions, but you can control your own. You can choose to respond with understanding instead of fear. You can choose stability over chaos. And in that calmness, something changes. Emotional safety spreads. When you don't panic, when you stay consistent, it tells the avoidant that closeness can be safe. There's a deeper truth in all of this. Every relationship we have mirrors our relationship with fear. The avoidant runs from it. The anxious chases it too fast. But both are trying to handle the same thing, uncertainty. Real connection requires trust. Trust means letting go. Avoidance learned long ago that letting go can hurt, so it's not your job to talk them out of their fear with words. It's your job to show them something different with your energy. Be calm, be patient, be real. And if you're the one on the other side of this dance, your purpose isn't to chase them. It's to master yourself, to learn that you can want connection without demanding it, because love that's steady doesn't need to chase. It just stays, quietly, until the other person realizes it's safe to stop running. You can care deeply for someone and still give them space. Your value isn't measured by how fast someone returns or how quickly they realize your worth. Real emotional independence doesn't just attract better relationships, it changes them from the inside out. So when an avoidant person pulls away, it may sting, it may feel like rejection, but if you shift how you see it, it becomes something different. It becomes a test of your inner calm, a chance to prove to yourself that love isn't control, it's awareness. You don't have to chase to stay connected. Sometimes the strongest bond is the one that holds even when distance appears. In that quiet space, something happens. Growth unfolds, healing begins. And when they come back, and most do, they're not returning to chaos or neediness, they're coming back to peace, to emotional stability. So the next time someone withdraws, don't ask, how do I make them come back? Instead ask, how do I stay calm while they find balance? Because the one who can stay steady becomes the one they trust most. That's the point where you stop reacting from fear and start living from security. You may have noticed something interesting. Avoidants rarely say what they feel in clear words. They won't tell you they miss you, they won't ask for comfort, and they definitely won't say, please text me. Instead, they give tiny hints, like scattered pieces of a message hidden in small gestures. These small actions are their quiet language of emotion. It's not loud, it's subtle, but it's deliberate if you know how to listen. The truth is that for people with avoidant patterns, showing need feels unsafe. Their bodies and minds have learned that being vulnerable can bring rejection or a loss of control. So instead of saying what they want, they test the waters the safest way they can. Maybe they send a casual, hey, after weeks of silence. Maybe they like an old photo, leave a light comment, or send you a meme that only you'd understand. On the surface, it looks casual, but underneath, it's a risk. It's them saying, I still care, but please make it feel safe for me to show it. It's so important to understand that avoidants express closeness through presence, not through open confession. They might reappear online, mention you in passing, or drop something that recalls an old memory. These are not random acts. They are controlled, careful attempts to connect while still feeling safe. If you've ever received such a subtle gesture and thought, what does this even mean? It means they're thinking about you. They're trying to reconnect without exposing their fear. And this is where your reaction holds power. If you meet their small effort with frustration or neediness, their defenses rise again and they disappear. But if you respond with calm, gentle warmth and no pressure, you help them feel safe. You calm the fear that drives their distance. You show them that connection can be safe. And that safety, not passion or drama, is what opens their heart again. Avoidants often fear being misunderstood because in their past, showing feelings led to pain, rejection, shame, or criticism. So they teach themselves that being subtle means being safe. It's not that they lack emotion, it's that open emotion feels like danger. So when you notice these tiny invitations, realize the courage it takes for them to even try. Psychologically, these small moments, the messages, the quiet check-ins, the reappearances, are what researchers call bids for connection. They aren't full steps, they're little tests. They're silently asking, can I reach for you without losing myself? How you respond to that determines what happens next. If you reply with steadiness and calm, without overanalyzing or overpraising, you show them that closeness doesn't have to mean losing independence. You show them that connection can exist alongside space. Many people ignore these little moments, thinking they don't matter. But for someone who avoids closeness, small actions are huge progress. That short message might have taken hours of internal struggle to send. That like on your picture might have come after hesitation and self-doubt. You don't see the effort, but it's there. So when you reply, do it with understanding, not judgment. A simple, steady, "It's good to hear from you" can do more than a long emotional paragraph. It shows maturity. It says, I see you and I'm calm. That doesn't mean you should chase crumbs or build hopes from tiny hints. It means learning to recognize real connection and responding with balance, not need. Because what avoidants fear most isn't your presence, it's emotional demand. They need to move toward closeness in a way that feels manageable. If you can meet them where they are without losing your emotional stability, you build a bridge. Growth begins not through chasing, but through quiet, grounded presence. There's also a deeper truth here. We've been taught to believe that love has to be dramatic, loud, or obvious to be real. But for avoidance, love speaks in soft tones. It hides in the small gestures, the quiet returns, the subtle ways they remember what matters to you. That's their form of affection, gentle, hesitant, but sincere. When you start to see their actions through that softer lens, your entire perspective changes. You stop taking their silence personally. You stop seeing distance as rejection. You begin to understand that closeness doesn't look the same for everyone. Emotional connection is like language. People learn it at different speeds and with different accents. And when you speak it with empathy instead of expectation, you stop creating tension and start creating transformation. So when you receive that small message or that quiet reappearance, pause. Don't dismiss it as nothing. Don't overthink it into something it's not. Just recognize it as a small step toward connection from someone who's learning that love can be gentle. Respond with calm presence. Because in your calm, they find safety. And in that safety, connection can bloom again. If there's one thing to hold on to, it's this. The most meaningful communication doesn't always come from big words or dramatic actions. It often comes in whispers that say, I'm trying in the only way I know. When you learn to hear those whispers, you stop waiting for grand gestures and start understanding the truth beneath them. Reaching out to someone with avoidant patterns is one of the most delicate emotional acts you can make because the line between connection and pursuit is very thin. Most people, when they feel distance, act on instinct. They close the gap. They call, they message, they explain, they try to fix. But when you chase an avoidant, you don't bring them closer. You push them farther away. Every bit of emotional pressure wakes up their fear of being trapped or smothered. So the skill isn't about how often you reach out, it's about how you do it. Connecting with an avoidant requires emotional balance. It's about showing calm instead of urgency, care without attachment, warmth without expectation. It's saying, I care, without saying, you owe me. Picture this. You want to reach out after silence. The anxious part of you wants certainty, closure, a sign you still matter. But if you speak from that emotion, it shows. The avoidant will feel it, even if you hide it behind kind words. Avoidants sense emotional tone more than actual words. If your message carries tension, frustration, or pressure, they pull back. That's why you must come from inner steadiness. A simple message like, "Hey, just thought of you, hope you're doing all right," says far more than an emotional essay ever could. It says, "I care, but I'm steady." You create space, not pressure. You send warmth without need. Many people think not chasing means not caring, but real care is quiet strength. It's the ability to reach out without losing your own peace. That's how emotional safety is built. When you can show care without demand, you become a source of calm. You teach by energy, not words. You show that love can exist without control. That's what helps trust grow again. The avoidant doesn't only need distance. They need to feel that being close to you won't flood them emotionally. They need to sense you're not going to pressure them for more than they can give. When they feel that steady energy, something changes. You become different from the people who made them afraid of closeness. You become safe. This is the essence of emotional balance, being present but not over-involved. It's being fully there without being consumed by the moment. That emotional balance is magnetic. It draws avoidance back not through words, but through your calm energy. They're pulled toward environments that feel peaceful, not chaotic. If you can be that space, calm instead of controlling, steady instead of reactive, you speak to the quiet part of them that wants closeness but fears it. There's a psychological term called emotional flooding. It happens when one person's emotional intensity overwhelms another's capacity to handle it, triggering shutdown. That's what happens when you push too hard. The avoidant becomes flooded and withdraws for survival. But when you lead with calm energy instead of anxiety, you stop the cycle. You show that connection can breathe. You prove that love can be peaceful. Your real goal is the opposite of what most people think. You're not meant to chase or force closeness. You're meant to create emotional space, the kind that allows the other person to move toward you in their own time. That isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Because real healing for avoidant behavior doesn't come from intensity, it comes from safety. So how does that look in real life? It looks like reaching out once, then stepping back and letting things breathe. It's believing that your worth isn't tied to how quickly someone replies. It's staying centered, even in silence. It's whispering to yourself, "Their timing doesn't measure my value." When you start living from that place, you become steady. That calm, confident energy breaks the loop of chase and retreat. It also means being honest about your motives before you reach out. Ask yourself, am I doing this to connect or to control? One comes from love, the other from fear, and the energy you carry always shapes the outcome. When you reach out with no hidden need to fix or push, your message carries peace. It lands differently because people feel energy more than words. Maybe that's the deeper truth. Reaching out is less about what you say, and more about who you are when you say it. If you're calm, clear, and emotionally balanced, your words will bring comfort. But if you're anxious or desperate for a result, even kind words can sound like pressure. The goal isn't to craft the perfect text or pick the perfect moment. The real goal is to reach a state within yourself where you can express love without fear and give space without emotional distance. That's what emotional maturity looks like. That's where genuine connection starts. Because when you can approach from peace instead of panic, you don't just change the situation, you transform it. You become the grounded energy in a world full of reaction. And soon, that groundedness becomes magnetic. So next time you feel the urge to chase, stop for a moment, take a breath, center yourself. And if after that it still feels right, reach out, but do it from calm, not craving, from clarity, not confusion, from love, not emptiness. Because true power isn't in getting a response. It's in knowing you can offer connection without giving away your peace. One of the biggest misunderstandings about avoidant people is believing that distance means they don't care. Our minds jump there first. They pulled away, so they must be done. But often that isn't the case. For someone who's avoidant, distance isn't rejection. It's a way to feel safe again. When they get emotionally overloaded, they step back, not because they stopped caring, but because they're trying to manage what they feel. What's happening underneath is more biological than personal. Avoidant patterns often come from early experiences where closeness felt unsafe or overwhelming. Their nervous system learned a rule: love equals pressure. So even when they want connection, part of them feels trapped by it. They don't withdraw to hurt you, they withdraw to protect themselves. When you can really see that, when you can view their distance as regulation instead of rejection, everything changes. Imagine they open up a little, they share something real, or spend meaningful time with you. In that closeness, they feel both warmth and risk. Vulnerability doesn't relax them, it alarms them. It triggers an old feeling that whispers, "I've gone too far, I need to get back to safety." So they disappear for a while, not because the moment wasn't true, but because it was too true. That intimacy stirs a flood inside them that they need time to calm. If you're on the other side of that, it hurts. It feels like emotional whiplash, closeness followed by distance, tenderness replaced by coldness. The natural impulse is to chase, to ask questions, to fix it. But when you chase someone in that fragile state, it backfires. Your urgency feels like pressure, confirming their fear that closeness equals loss of freedom, so instead of feeling safe, they shut down even more. The wiser response, which takes strength, is to see their space differently. Don't take it as a personal rejection, understand it as their emotional limit. That doesn't make you passive, it makes you emotionally intelligent. You're not reacting from ego, you're responding from awareness. You're reading what's happening through compassion instead of self-blame. That change of lens is powerful. When you see their distance as a way to self-soothe, your job isn't to interrupt it. It's to hold a calm space while it happens. That means giving room without anger. It means staying available but not invasive. A simple message like, "Take your time, I'm here when you're ready," can carry more comfort than any emotional plea ever could. It tells their nervous system, "I'm safe. You don't need to hide from me." Over time, those calm signals begin to rewrite what they believe about love. This is one of love's hardest truths. Real connection sometimes means allowing silence. It means loving without smothering. It means letting someone's fear exist without making it your enemy. Because as you become emotionally secure, you realize love isn't ownership, it's permission. Permission for them to be who they are while they learn how to stay connected. That doesn't mean accepting neglect or half-hearted effort. It means you understand the pattern before you decide what it means for you. Emotional intelligence is about discernment, knowing when space is wise and when it's avoidance of your own. When you're anchored in yourself, you can give space without losing yourself. That's where growth begins. When you stop reacting to their withdrawal with panic, you rise from dependency to strength. You stop seeing distance as rejection and start seeing it as emotional data, information about where they are. From there, you choose what aligns with your peace. That's true power, because the paradox is, when you stop trying to control the outcome, you create the only condition where genuine connection can return. When an avoidant senses you won't chase, their guard drops. The tug-of-war between closeness and freedom eases. They start to feel that connection can exist without fear. That's when they often reappear, not from guilt, but from trust. So if you're in that place where someone has stepped back, remember this: The kindest thing you can sometimes do is not demand their presence, but protect both of your peace. Trust that a healthy connection can handle space. If it can't, then it wasn't rooted in safety to begin with. Because distance doesn't always mean disinterest. Sometimes it's the only way healing can happen. When you can see their silence not as rejection, but as reflection of fear, you stop chasing comfort and start becoming it. That's emotional mastery. It's the real test in any deep connection. Because their instinct might be to withdraw, and yours might be to react. You want to fix, explain, close the gap. But real strength isn't in how fast you chase after someone. It's in how calm you stay when they retreat. It's about leading with peace, not panic. Emotional mastery isn't coldness. It's calm power. It's being so stable in yourself that someone else's absence doesn't shake your worth. It's knowing their avoidance isn't about your inadequacy, but about their fear. And that shift changes everything. Every relationship is really two nervous systems interacting. One moves toward closeness, the other away. The insecure side of you might crave reassurance, while their avoidant side craves space. Emotional mastery means you can hold both truths. They need room, and I need connection. You don't spiral into anger or anxiety. You steady yourself. You remind yourself that calm changes more than chaos ever can. This is where many people go wrong. They try to prove safety through words, reassurance, or pursuit. But no one can convince an avoidant that connection is safe. They must feel it. And they feel it through your emotional steadiness. Every time you stay composed instead of reactive, you're teaching their system that closeness doesn't equal danger. That's quiet leadership, not control but grounded strength. It says, I can handle your fear without losing myself. I won't crumble under uncertainty. Emotional mastery doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you no longer let your feelings dictate your actions. You can feel frustration, longing, confusion, and still choose calm, patience, and self-respect. One of life's hardest lessons is learning to love without losing yourself, to care deeply without falling apart. We were taught that love means proving, fixing, merging. But real love needs two whole people, not one trying to save the other. Emotional mastery is becoming that whole person. It's not a tactic to get them back. It's growth that makes you complete with or without them. Something powerful happens when you reach that point. Avoidant people sense energy deeply. They can feel chasing energy even when words sound calm, but they can also feel peace. When you stop trying to control, you become safe. They begin to trust your presence more than your promises. In that safety, real connection grows again, not through pressure, but through peace. You realize then that emotional mastery was never about them. It's about you. It's learning to live with uncertainty without losing your center. It's knowing peace is not given, it's chosen. When you lead with that awareness, you stop feeding fear. Because when you stop reacting to fear, you stop creating it. People don't follow words, they follow energy. When you radiate calm strength, others sense it. When you stand firm in stability, you give others permission to feel safe too. That's why calmness is the highest form of influence. It doesn't just shift relationships, it transforms the emotional space around you. So if you're dealing with someone avoidant or emotionally distant, remember, your role isn't to fix them. It's to stay anchored in your peace while they find theirs. Lead with clarity. Lead with steadiness. Because the one who remains calm in emotional storms doesn't just create connection, they create trust. That's what avoidant hearts are searching for, not perfection or persuasion, but peace. They want to feel they can come closer without losing themselves. When you embody calm strength, you offer that, not through words, but through presence. So never measure your power by how much you can make someone stay, Measure it by how steady you remain when they pull away. That's the real power. Because anyone can love when it's simple. The real work is staying kind and grounded when it's not. When you can do that, when you choose calm over chaos, you stop trying to be chosen and start becoming unforgettable.